month of November, which is the month where turkey rules, we're going to talk turkey and talk about some truth principles. It's kind of back to basics with a twist. So, if you need a reminder of who you are, if you need a little bit of a refresher of how Spirit works in your lives, or if you sometimes feel that it's hard to really dive deep and maybe find things to be grateful for, then this is the month for you, because this is the month that we are talking turkey and identifying and addressing these ideas. So, oh yes, so important. How could I forget starting out with this? As many of you know, one of my favorite quotes by Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, is, "There is no world external to consciousness." And that's really just a convoluted way of saying consciousness is everything. I could have just said consciousness is everything. But consciousness is everything. So whatever it is that we're experiencing in our lives, the good, the bad, or the ugly, it really is coming from whatever it is that we're believing to be the truth about ourselves, and or the truth about our place in the world, and or the truth about how the world operates. This is all encompassing what it is in our consciousness. So when we have situations, when we have challenges, when we want to see an improvement in our lives of some kind, and we all want to see an improvement of some kind, somewhere in our lives. It could be in our physical bodies, it could be in our financial affairs, it could be in our work arena, it could be in our relationship with others, it could be in our relationship with ourselves, it could be we'd like to see an improvement in our relationship with God. It could be that we want to see improvement in how we feel about ourselves as far as self-worth. Maybe we want to develop a little bit more trust. Maybe we want to have a few more friends. Maybe we want to get rid of some of the stories that have kept us stuck. It doesn't matter what it is. We have ideas in our mind about where it is that we'd like to see improvement. And because we know that really consciousness is everything, we know that if we want to see a change in the outer world, we know, or we think we know, that we need to change. We need to do something to change. Because if nothing changes, nothing is going to change. However, it seems like we talk ourselves out of changing. And so in the immortal words of the cartoon character Pogo, I have seen the enemy, and it is us. And what happens is that we are standing in our own way. We are blocking our own improvement, if you will, because sometimes we are talking ourselves out of change. Why? Based on a consciousness that maybe we don't deserve to change. Maybe we think it's too hard to change. It's too late for us. We've tried it a million other times and it hasn't happened. We always revert. We have a lot of stories that go on in our minds that keep us stuck right where we are. Or maybe we'll move a little bit forward and we hit up against a wall, a stumbling block, and then we retreat back. So we're not making sometimes that much progress. So we want to change. We know we want to change. We know we must change. But sometimes, somehow, it seems like we allow that internal mind chatter, we allow something to block us. Which reminds me of this story that I've told a few times before about a Jewish man who moves, uncharacteristically moves, into a Catholic neighborhood. So every Friday, while the Catholic families are morosely eating fish, there's Mr. Goldberg out in his backyard barbecuing steaks. And the wonderful aroma of steaks, barbecued steaks, you know how good that smells, is wafting through the whole neighborhood, tempting the Catholic families who are eating fish. Well, they all get together and they think something has to be done. So they decide the best thing is to convert Mr. Goldberg to Catholicism. So they work on him. They work on him and work on him and work on him unendingly. And finally, through just commitment as well. He finally agrees. So they go to the priest, and the priest sprinkles some holy water on Mr. Goldberg, and he says, "You were born a Jew, you were raised a Jew, but now you are a Catholic." So the Catholic families in the neighborhood are thrilled. No more Friday nights where they are going to have to endure the sweet, succulent smell of barbecued beef. So Friday night comes, and what do they smell? The succulent smell of barbecued steak. They're all up in arms. They go run over to Mr. Goldberg's house because clearly he has not followed the rules. And what do they observe him doing? He's sprinkling water on the steaks and saying, "You were born a cow. You were raised a cow. But now you are a fish." So we want to change, but sometimes we really don't take action to engage in any change. We might take mouth action, verbal action, but we're not really taking any action. And we know that we want to do that, but sometimes we have some blocks. So our first truth principle this morning really is based on two words, and those two words is God knows. Now sometimes when we say God knows, it's because we're not coming from a place of enlightenment, like, "Oh, well, God knows." No. No, it's because we have tried everything. We have hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. We have tried to manipulate, orchestrate, control, and maneuver everything we know how to do. We're at our wits' end, and we throw up our hands and say, "God knows. God knows." And at that time, really, it's probably when we're the most open and ready to change. But the thing is, God does know. Because why? There is only one thing. And that one thing is God. Put in any word you want for that word, God. But there is only one thing, and that one thing is God. And so therefore, God knows. Because God is everything. God is the essence, the epitome, the circumference, everything there is the infinite. So God knows. And because we are at a point in time and a point in space where God is, and God is operating through us, as us, is us, within us, surrounding us, and God knows, guess what? There must be a place within us that knows as well. But we're not always tuned in. We're not always listening. So there is a place that we know, but here's what happens. We're busy doing things. We want to see improvement. Even if we don't want to see improvement, we're just human. We forget that we're human beings. And we think that we're human doings. And so we go about doing. We're driving, we're orchestrating, we're manipulating, we're controlling. We're doing everything we know how to do to create something, to make something happen. And when things turn out well, we want to really step in and take a lot of credit. We want to pat ourselves on the back and thinking, "I am all that and more. I've got this stuff down. Look at me." Maybe we don't really say it that way externally because, we want to be proper, but internally maybe we're taking a lot of credit because we have life nailed. We've got spiritual principle nailed. However, sometimes we're busy manipulating, controlling, orchestrating, doing everything we can do, busy, and things don't turn out the way we had hoped, the way we had manipulated, the way we have mapped it out. That happens occasionally, doesn't it? And then, because we're so busy taking credit, then what happens? Now sometimes we think, "Uh-oh, what am I doing wrong? How am I not using spiritual principle?" So sometimes we'll take blame, but also sometimes we're going to blame something external to us, like God, like the infinite presence, like, it doesn't, I believe that there's a power for good, but it doesn't really work for me. It works for everybody else, but not for me because, I had it nailed over here. So it must not work all the time. I can't really trust that it's working. But you know how a couple weeks ago I said that giving and receiving were two sides of the same coin? Well, sometimes we want to take credit for things, and then we want to blame. So something good happens, credit. Something not so good happens or doesn't happen how we want to blame. That's two sides of the same coin as well. But that coin is fool's gold. That's not the right coin. The real coin, the true gold, is that mental and spiritual coin. Because here's the thing, we are always using this power, you know the power, that power for good in the universe, greater than you are. We are always using it successfully. Always. Always. We are never not using it successfully. But what happens is this little thing called consciousness that I talked about earlier. Consciousness. When we're busy manipulating, controlling, orchestrating, maneuvering, being busy doing everything that we think we know how to do in the external world, we have forgotten that really change and creation starts first on the inside. It starts with that mental and spiritual coin. It starts with and ends with consciousness. We need to create a mental equivalent. We need to be equal in consciousness to what it is that we say that we want. And so if we're not seeing what we want, if we're not seeing the improvement we desire, if we're not manifesting or demonstrating what it is that we say we want, no need to blame anything. No need to get upset about anything. No need to think that the universal principles do not work for us. No need to bang ourselves over the head. No need to get depressed or no need to despair, because it's just an indication that we're not where we need to be mentally, in consciousness. And all we need to do then is get busy. That's all we need to do. But we have forgotten, and we think that we are the creators. And we'll say that we're creating. We create our lives as God. I'll say that on Sunday. But there's a lot of fine-tuning. There's a lot of subtleties. Because we are really focusing. We are directing the power. We're not creating the power. God knows how to create health out of illness. God knows how to create abundance out of lack. God knows how to create joy out of loneliness. God knows how to create a sense of self-worth out of despair. I don't know how to do that. Do you? But here's what we know how to do. Here's what I know how to do. I know how to think. I can direct my thoughts in purposeful and conscious ways. I know how to imagine. I know how to visualize. I know how to steer my thoughts away from what it is that I don't want and focus them solely on what it is that I do want. I know how to do that. Sometimes I think I don't know how. Sometimes I forget that I know how. But that's what I know how to do. And then, as if by magic, as if by miracle, the external is created. It's so simple. But we forget. We forget constantly. And so we're in the world maneuvering, orchestrating, and manipulating because we think we have to make things happen. We have forgotten that God knows. We have forgotten that Spirit knows. We have forgotten that we are surrounded by an infinite intelligence that is all powerful, that responds to us by corresponding. So this is another way of just talking really about the law of attraction and being that vibrational equivalent, that energetic equivalent to that it is that we think that we want. That's all we need to do. Now, once we have that mental equivalent, we are human doings, and so we want to take action. And I'm going to say we want to take inspired action. But on that highest level, if we are a magnet, and if these universal principles work, like manna from heaven, it should manifest for us. But most of us won't get to that level of belief. But we certainly can control our own thoughts. even though we might think that we have forgotten, even though we might think that we don't know how to do it. We do know how to do it, right? But like I said earlier, on Sunday mornings I'm good to go. But the minute I get in my car, I've forgotten. And now I think I'm a driver. And everything external to me is influencing. If I'm in traffic, I might get a little bit cranky. My blood pressure might go up. I might honk on my horn. If somebody cuts me off, I get angry. I have forgotten that I am directing the power, directing the flow. I am creating continuously 24/7, 365. I am continuously directing and creating and responsible for my own energetic output, for my own consciousness. Am I experiencing what I want, or am I not? And if I'm not, no need to blame. All I need to do is remember to change my thinking and keep it changed. Instead of intoning, just intoning that, oh, I was born this, but now I am improved. Instead of just intoning, to actually make that change. But what happens is, and it's all around us, the messages, the information is all around us, we're just not listening. We're not listening to our own divine nature. We're not listening to the inner genius that is within us. We're not listening to that power that is always calling our name. There's a story about a Native American in New York walking with a friend in New York City, Manhattan, near Times Square, lunchtime. So you can imagine the noise that goes around. It's honking of horns and taxi cabs screeching and buses going and people talking, and it's very, very noisy. And all of a sudden, the Native American says, I think I hear a cricket. And his friend says, that's impossible. You can't hear a cricket in all this noise. He says, no, I think I heard a cricket. And so he walks across the street. He goes into this planter, this concrete planter where there's some foliage, and sure enough, he looks under a leaf, and there is a cricket. Well, his friend is amazed and says, wow, you must have some special ears. I mean, wow. And the Native American says, no, my ears are no more, developed than you. It just depends on what it is that you're listening for. He says, no, I could never hear something like that. And the Native American says, well, you're right, because it just depends on what you're listening for. Let me give you an example, he says. So still in the middle of downtown Times Square, Manhattan, busy noontime, screeching cabs, buses, the Native American reaches nicely into his pocket and just discreetly throws a couple of coins on the floor. So the same noise level is going on, and everyone within a 20-foot radius of that turned around to see if it was their coins that fell on the floor. And he said, so, you see, it depends on what you're listening for. So what are we listening for? Are we listening to that divine whisper within? Are we listening to that inner voice that will remind us that first it comes from within before the without? Or are we listening to hear that whisper? Or are we listening to our internal mind chatter, to that monkey mind that tells us that we're not good enough? That life is a struggle? Are we listening to our talents and skills and our passion that wants to be known, enjoyed, and expressed? Or are we listening to the old patterns that tell us that we've tried and tried and tried and never succeeded, and so why try again? What are we listening for? Are we listening for those ideas that say God knows? That everything that is happening right now is perfect according to how things are unfolding. And that's okay. And if I don't like it, if I want to see an improvement, if I want to change in any way, I just need to easily do my part, and redirect my thinking. Or are we listening to the ideas in our head that says we have to run here and there and everywhere to make things happen? to manipulate, to orchestrate. Because the infinite knows how to bring together everything in the universe, to be a match to what it is that we are already internally, to our own mental equivalent. I don't know how to bring together somebody in New York that needs to come into my circumstance, who needs to get fired, to get on an airplane that was really going to Detroit, but then the plane got delayed and it got went to Houston instead, and from Houston, oh, it was a hop, skip, and a jump to Sedona, who happens to come and sit here in this chair. Or whatever, we've all heard, if we haven't personally had experiences, we've heard of these magical things that happen at the right place at the right time when that person is ready. And we can be ready in a moment, but we need to let go. We need to let go of our control. We need to let go of the thought that we're creating the events and allow that higher essence, that God power. We need to let go and let God. And when we do that, we think we're out of control. We love to be in control. But really, it's a sense of freedom. It's a sense of freedom because now we can get busy doing what it is that's our job to do. We don't now have to run the universe. That job is taken. I've tried it. I think I did an okay job for a half of a second, right? But sometimes I'm out of my element when I am trying to rule and govern the universe. I'm really poor at it when I'm trying to make somebody else's behavior change. I've tried. Mostly through talking, screaming, tantrums, begging, pleading. We've bargained with God. If this person will just change, I promise I'll never do that again if, right? We have given a lot of lip service, a lot of attention to changing the externals by only changing the externals. When all along, we've had that within, which could have changed everything. And that within, which is the only thing that will ever change anything long term. Can we force something to happen? We can. Is it going to stick? Probably not. Any more than we can force a square peg into a round hole. We can do it. We could shave things off, but it's not a good fit. It's not a good fit. And then we've blocked our good to when we find that round peg that fits so sublimely, so perfectly in that round hole. We need to take a step back and allow the infinite to do its thing by means of us, and we can do our thing. So I have a poem by Loretta Burns. Many of us have heard this. It says, "As children bring their broken toys with tears for us to mend, I brought my broken dreams to God because God was my friend. But then instead of leaving God in peace to work alone, I hung around and tried to help in ways that were my own. At last, I snatched them back and said, 'How can you be so slow?' 'My child,' God said, 'what could I do? You never did let go.'" So when we can let go of what we think things have to look like, can you imagine the mental peace that might bring? When we can let go of our thought that we have to make things happen, can you imagine the feeling of freedom that might bring us? And then we can focus on what it is that we're meant to do. And that is the inner work. That is our mental work. That is enjoying ourselves and acknowledging ourselves. That is giving ourselves credit. Healing this idea that we are flawed. Overcoming ideas that we have to earn our place in the world. Moving beyond ideas that we're not good enough or that we have to earn anything, that it isn't our time, that we're just not lucky, that we've tried and succeeded, that we're not meant for success. I was talking to someone recently, and he said this. He said this came from a faith tradition, and it's true for them. But boy, the cackles in my back of my neck just kind of stuck, went up on end. And I was mentioning to this person that I'd gotten back from this 3-day workshop, The Sacred Energy of Money. And he said, well, you know, according to this faith tradition, it is predestined. It is foreordained, if you will, how much money that you are going to have and earn, your capacity. Silence on my end, because I didn't want to start an argument. But boy, that didn't feel good to me. That didn't feel good. But let's say that's our tradition, and we were brought up with that. You're only going to be so successful. You're only going to make this much money. Some of us have deep-seated patterns. It's a psychological pattern that we don't move beyond our parents' standard of living. Now, we make more money than they do because things were cheaper then. But if they were middle class, we stay middle class. Because for some reason, for some of us, not consciously, there's some subconscious belief that somehow we make them wrong. We don't want to put our parents in a bad light, so we remain at that level. And in that way, we could think, it could seem, that no matter what we do and what we try to do and how many classes we take and how many books we read, and no matter what we try, financially speaking anyway, we don't ever seem to get ahead. But not because it's predestined, but maybe because there's an idea that we've developed that we may not even know about that causes us to only go so high. That our financial thermostat is set. Our relationship thermostat is set. Our career thermostat is set. Our self-love thermostat is set. Well, who said it? God didn't set it. The infinite doesn't restrict in any way. If we are feeling the need for improvement, it is because we have set the limits on ourselves. Eric Butterworth, master New Thought teacher, said this: when we actually believe that God is the only real power in our lives, we shall act accordingly and form wonderful new mental habits. Less and less will we allow ourselves to be swayed by distressing mortal influence. Our inner attention will be tuned more to the omnipresent divine good that is rightfully ours. So stop trying to make it happen and just let it happen. Stop trying to make money and let substance flow. Stop trying to make a demonstration of health and let life have its way with you. Because you see, life knows how to have its way with you. Life, infinite intelligence, divine mind, spirit, source energy, whatever it is that we want to call that essence, that presence, that power, knows exactly how to have its way with you. So if we can just get out of our own way, if we can get out of the way of stop trying so hard to make things happen, to create, which is the realm of the infinite, and to instead spend more time, more conscious and deliberate time, doing what it is that we are in control of, to update, upgrade, enhance our own consciousness, because that consciousness is everything, then we will be more of a free avenue to let life have its way with us, but let life have its way in us. So how big is your imagination? How big are you willing to be? How wonderful are you willing to dream? How open can you become? How deep are you willing to dive to find that pearl of wisdom within? How much are you willing to love yourself? How much are you willing to trust? How abandonedly are you willing to step forward into your own possibilities, into your own life, into your own sense of spirituality? whatever you determine that to be, that's exactly how life is going to show up for you and in you. So I say, let's open up to the greater, to the wonderful, to the God. Let's do our job and allow ourselves to open up to our own unlimited possibilities. And so